All right, guys, we got a new section to the America Happens website called the Whistleblowers Forum, where you could go on there and anonymously or using your name post anything that you want and contact other whistleblowers to talk about what's really going on out there.
All right, guys, we are here with the latest episode of Blood Money with one of my favorite guests, Michael Yon. How you doing, sir?
Well, it's another day in paradise. I'm in Panama City near the Panama Canal. I watched Trump's speech last night. As you know, I've been coming down to Panama a lot in the last since Biden was installed and watched a lot of dramas. And I've been warning about the Chinese year after year. Well, not just since recently. I've written 3 books on Chinese information war that are only in Japanese, and those books are about 10 years old. So, that was when I was fighting China and from Hong Kong and Taiwan and Japan and Thailand and whatnot. So, I've been at this for a long time in a lot of countries. And Panama, as you know, is one of the most important little countries on earth, especially for the United States. Very few people seem to know that. By the way, there's a little statue of the head of Einstein down the road from me. Einstein was here a couple times.
Oh, wow.
Passed through. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it definitely came to the forefront, man. I got to tell you, I was in the State of the Union yesterday, and I remember you naming some individuals that had gotten through the Darien Gap, I believe it's called, where you were definitely monitoring what was happening there. And this information came up in the Trump State of the Union. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, Laken Riley was raped and murdered, American university student. And the guy, at least somebody by the same name and age, he clearly came through the Darien Gap on, I think it was March 15th, 2023. I looked it up last night as soon as I saw the speech. Anyway, he came, a name with he's a Venezuelan, Jose Ibarra. And Jose Ibarra from Venezuela is listed with his same age. I would have to have his passport number to be able to check. But there's a lot of people we see committing crimes that we're able to definitively say that they came through. For instance, one we think was MSS, Ministry of State Security for the CCP, Chinese Communist Party. The MSS is the CIA for the Chinese Communist Party, right? And one, for instance, we were able to identify by name, age, and his passport number. He definitely came through, right? And we're able to identify these people constantly. We know that in 2022, 23, and 24, just those 3 years, more than 1 million came through just the Darien Gap. That doesn't include flows through Mexico where people bypass the Darien, like a lot of Chinese. They just fly to Mexico for vacation, or they go to Canada, or they come in from the Bahamas. Misako Ganaha, I took her to the airport here in Panama about 2.5 days ago. She's back in Japan now, but we know that many of the Chinese fly in, and now some are being deported from Panama. So when Misako flew back to Japan, she's there now. She just messaged, actually. She went on Turkish Air. Turkish Air is the airline that a lot of them use because a lot come through Istanbul, not just Turks, but the whole world. And there or Netherlands is 2 big airports. So the Chinese, she got on board the flight 2 days ago with 26 Chinese that were being deported from Panama. So Misako identified herself as a journalist, and she talked with Panamanian migration, and she talked with the Chinese because they were getting on the same airplane. And then she talked with them on that long flight from Panama City, Panama, over to Istanbul, Turkey. And then she talked with them in the Turkish airport. And I asked her to write a summary, which she did, and I published on my Substack. So Misako's summary is on my Substack with some photos and videos. So these Chinese who were coming through, they're not quitting. They're being deported. They were just deported from Panama, and some were deported from the United States through Panama. But they're not quitting, and they're very clear about that. They're just going to reroute. And so the Chinese have their own. We know that about more than 25,000 Chinese came through the Darien Gap just in 2023. We know that for a fact. In fact, I'm down there all the time, physically watching them, but we know their names, we know their birth dates, we know that more than 25,000 Chinese came through just in 2023. More than 500,000 people came through in 2023. Page after page after page of Iranians, Venezuelan gangsters, tattoos on their eyes, AK-47, that sort of thing. Clear, Tren de Aragua, they will say it. I've asked them many times, Tren de Aragua, and they'll be like, sí, and they're all proud of it. And these people, a lot of the rapes and murders that happen in the Darien jungle are by actually other migrants. They're not, they do happen from gangsters in the Darien Gap. That's straight up hardcore jungle out there. But a lot of what happens, a lot of the criminality are from actual other migrante, such as the gangsters of Tren de Aragua. They come through in gangs. They don't come through there one by one. They come through in like little units, little gangster dog packs, right? And now they're all over the United States. It's the same with the Chinese. Very few Chinese come in individually. They come in packs. I watch them. I'm out there with them, talking with them, right? And they go all over the United States. Again, the Chinese, they have their own systems. They use the United Nations system when it's convenient, like in the Darien Gap. But mostly the Chinese have their own system is very vibrant. It's a very distributed system all over the world. We understand a lot about it, but it's so huge. We certainly don't understand it all. It's massive. But most of the people coming in are using the United Nations architecture. One of the things, I watched Trump's speech closely. He did not say anything about dismantling the United Nations. If you don't dismantle the United Nations, you're not even serious. I was saying this long ago, over and over and over, hundreds of times. If you don't dismantle the United Nations, none of this is serious. And I mean defund, defang, and start prosecuting people. Otherwise, the architecture is still in place. All those camps in the Darien Gap, I was just in them again. And I have people in all of them. These things are open, wide open, right? They're operating. They're not closed. The pipe, in fact, people are still flowing through. They're just in very small numbers compared to what they've been flowing through. I would say they're down by 95, 98% right now, but they're completely operational. I've seen this happen before where there's a temporary halt in the Darien Gap, and then boom, the real storm comes. Basically, what's happened now, according to the U.S. government itself, there were over 8,000 arrests on the U.S. southern border in February alone. So, okay, if you compare that to the months before when Biden was in charge, it looks like, hey, we've made a lot of progress, and we have. So we've gone from Category 5 typhoon down to Category 1, right? Or I guess typhoons are on a different chart. Let's say hurricane. We've gone from Cat 5 hurricane to Cat 1 hurricane. It's still a hurricane. Now, are there a lot? Go ahead, sir.
No. I was just acknowledging. Yes.
Yeah. Are there a lot being deported? Some are. There's a hotel down the road from me called the Decapolis. I've been to it quite a few times. This is where the United States is housing some of them. It's a 29-floor hotel. There's no serious deportations going on. If you're deporting seriously, it's going to be $500,000 a month, and you will be defunding the United Nations and defanging them, seizing their records, arresting people who have been doing the human trafficking. None of this is occurring. None of it. The architecture is fully in place. So even as we have the U.S. military down on the southern border, good. But are they stopping it? No, actually, they're just reducing it. They're still reducing it to a devastating number. It's still reduced. And we're like, yay, it's a lot of progress. It is. It's killing us slower. And period. If you don't dismantle the United Nations, it's all a joke, right? It's all a big, dangerous joke. When the architecture is in place, Trump's not going to be with us for more than 4 more years, right? He's going to be out of office, right? He's losing his power as every day goes by because that's just how every presidency is, right? Not just his, it's just the nature of that office. Within 2 years, his power will be cut probably by half, if not much more. And within 4 years, he's gone, right? And then the architecture's still in place. Boom. The dogs are running again. And after they've had, listen, I've watched them build up these camps in the Darien and other places in Texas and whatnot. They are absolutely ready for far more numbers. You see Colony Ridge, those lawsuits that have been happening and all those raids in Texas. You know who got all that going? That was our team, Burning Edge. We're the ones who put that on the map, got a helicopter from a good patriot named Dave Cannon there near Houston, got congressmen up there, got Epoch Times up there, got Daily Wire up there. You see all their stories, Daily Wire and all that. Well, we're the ones that got them there, right? We're the ones that got that focus on that massive Colony Ridge colonia, which has built for 200,000 people. It's a city built from scratch for 200,000 illegal. There's nothing but gangsterism going on there. I was first brought there by Todd Bensman. Todd Bensman has written extensively about border issues. We disagree on a lot of things, but I can tell you one thing. He does his homework. He's a very serious man. He's very courageous. I've been across the border with him. I've been in Mexico with him and other places. Todd Bensman is quite serious. And Todd published about the Colony Ridge, and he took me there actually so that I would put it on the map. He was very explicit about that, which I then did. This is a colony inside the United States. We always blame these things on Colombia or Panama or Mexican cartels. Listen, anybody who's blaming the invasions on Mexican cartels is either a dimwit or is getting paid or something by somebody, because that's not what's happening. The Mexican cartels are not taking people from Angola and flying them to Turkey and flying them to Ecuador and getting them on a bus to Nicocli, Colombia, and on a boat to Capatagana, Colombia, and then walking through the Darien Gap. And then I talk with them there or down in Colombia and getting them on buses all the way up to Mexico. No. And then the final steps, the Mexican cartels are involved. And so they blame the Mexican cartels. No. Who's doing this? United Nations. United, except for the Chinese and a few other architectures who have their own means and methods. But the bulk of these are being done by the United Nations. Who's paying for the United Nations? United States. United States of America is paying for the United Nations. United Nations is causing and facilitating and inspiring most of the invasions. These are not over. We got people with these endorphin rushes because they watched Trump do his thing last night. I'm watching it very closely, sitting where I'm sitting now, waiting for him to talk about United Nations and these sorts of things. Now, let's talk about Panama Canal out my window. I've been talking about this for years. You know what? All these books are about Panama Canal and a lot more. I've studied this thing in detail for a long time. Well, not this book. This book is Weapons of Mass Migration. So Panama is a place for both. It's a path for mass. It's a path for mass migration, and it's also the Panama Canal, which is one of the 7 most strategic chokeholds in the world, right? Strait of Malacca, Strait of Hormuz, Bab el-Mandeb, Suez Canal, Strait of Gibraltar, Strait of Turkey, if you want to call it that, Panama Canal. Those are that. Did I miss one? Anyway, but the bottom line is there's 7 key, the most strategic passages in the world. This is one. And this is by far the most important to us, because not only is it one of the 7 most strategic in the world, it's next door to us, and a huge amount of our trade goes through this. Whereas Strait of Malacca, a lot of our trade goes through there, but a lot more goes for Asian countries. But the bottom line is this is also a funnel through the Darien Gap as they build a highway down there. Now, every time I say they're building a highway to the Darien Gap, people say, you don't know what you're talking about. It's impossible and blah, blah, blah. One guy last year told me it's impossible to build a highway through the Darien Gap to Colombia. While we were standing beside the Panama Canal, we're standing beside the Panama Canal, looking at the Panama Canal. We could throw a rock and hit the Panama Canal. And he's telling me that it's impossible to build a road to Colombia. I mean, I said to him, you understand, you just told me that while we're looking at the impossible Panama Canal, and here comes a big ship going through. That's right, here we go, right? Yeah, the Panama Canal was impossible until it was opened. And the road through the Darien Gap to Colombia is about as impossible as a road through Louisiana. It's not impossible. It's just expensive. It is being built. People say it's impossible. I'm down there. I'm the one who found the 2 bridges that are being built. I found them, right? Personally, alone. I was out there with some Indian friends, some Imbra Indian friends, because I kept going down there looking, thinking they're going to build a road to Colombia. That's important, very important, because we've got 2 major funnels here. Excuse me. We've got the Panama Canal, huge. Then we've got the Darien Gap. As that gets opened up, that'll be huge. You got to keep in mind, where I'm sitting now, Panama has been one of the most strategic places on earth for 500 years, right? Certainly for 400, arguably 500. When Christopher Columbus came sailing past here in 1502 and 03, if my memory's right, who followed him? Balboa, of course. Balboa is the one who the Atlantic side is. By the way, let me say some geography real quick. Housekeeping geography. The long axis of Panama is east-west. It's not north-south. Most people seem to think it's north-south. It's not. It's east-west. And the Panama Canal runs almost north-south, right? Panama Canal, just say, runs north-south, right? It's right out here. I can assure you it runs north and south. And so the North Sea, as they used to call it, is the Atlantic side, the Caribbean side. The South Sea, as Balboa called it, is the Pacific, right? Balboa is the one who discovered the South Sea through Panama. And since that time, people have tried through time to build passages across. This place broke the Spaniards, right? I mean, like over its knee, right? Balboa was finally executed in the Darien in 1519. He was beheaded actually by the governor of the Darien. But Balboa had started the first Western settlement in the mainland Americas. I'm not talking about Santo Domingo over in Dominican Republic. That was the first real settlement in our hemisphere by Westerners, by non-indigenous people. But the first one that was actually on a mainland, North or South America, was in the Darien, right? It was called Santa Maria La Antigua del Darien. That's the oldest Western settlement that survived for any length of time, and it was built in the Darien by Balboa in 1510. It was finally destroyed by 1524. Indians and whatever else got them, probably a lot of diseases. But in any case, ever since that time, the gold here is known. There's poems about how pure the gold is here. I mean, like, this place is gold and silver, right? So you had the Spaniards who were gold and silver crazy over here, getting as much as they could, going to war with people. And finally, the Spaniards were broken. The Scottish came in. The Scottish came in the 1690s and worked on their Darien project, which later was called the Darien Scheme. They did 2 major projects near where Balboa actually was executed a couple hundred years earlier. That's how long this goes. By the time the Scottish were trying to build their passage across the seas, all the Spanish settlements were already overgrown and in ruins, right? But we're talking 1690s. By the 1690s, much of the Spanish work was already overgrown and in ruins. Other was still being built. But the bottom line is the Scottish came in the Darien and they went bankrupt. 2,000 dead Scottish later, this is how Scotland is part of the United Kingdom today, because the Articles of Union, 1706, 1707, were because of this place, Panama. Scotland was trying to make a passage between the seas. Panama broke them over its knee, and they ended up getting absorbed into the United Kingdom. I was in Afghanistan with Scottish soldiers, Black Watch, and those soldiers are fighting for a different king because of the Darien. They tried to make a passage, bankrupted them, they got absorbed. Next come a lot of other people, broken, dead. Then comes the French, bankrupt. They tried to make a canal across the seas. De Lesseps, the guy that got so much fame for Ferdinand de Lesseps for the successful Suez Canal. Then they came here. The Panama Canal is not a sea level canal. Suez Canal is a sea level canal, right? Keep in mind, Suez Canal is one of the 7 major chokeholds on planet Earth. And that's right by the Bab el-Mandeb, another one, right? So Bab el-Mandeb, Suez, and here is another one. So de Lesseps was credited with the success at the Suez Canal. He then attached his name to the Panama Canal and almost ended up in prison for fraud. I mean, there was so much fraud going on. They tried to make a sea level canal. It was never going to work. I mean, the tides are 17 feet difference between the Pacific and the Atlantic sometimes. You would have like a river going back and forth. It would just wouldn't work. So anyway, long story short, thousands of dead French and other people that they had hired later. There's a cemetery not far from me, Yellow Fever Cemetery, and it's a French cemetery. It's overgrown now. It's right beside the road. And so the French, they were gone. So then came the United States. We did all these studies. These books right here, except for this one. And I got like this many books that I've been going through for 4 years now. And I just got these new ones here. That's why that one's wrapped up. But these books are about the studies in Nicaragua. A lot of people say, have you ever heard of the Nicaragua Canal? Let me show you. I got a stack of books on the Nicaragua Canal this big, right? With maps that fold out, detailed maps, like, I don't know, 50 of them probably. Like, probably even more. It's unbelievable. Very detailed studies in the 1800s of the Nicaragua routes, of the Colombia routes, of other routes. And finally, they had a big fight and they opened the canal here. But when the United States came in, a lot of people were like, well, the French failed. The Americans have no chance. And we opened it, right? 1914 was a big, big year, as you know. That was the year that the Haber-Bosch process started coming online in Germany at the BASF plant there, which I've been to a couple times in the last few years studying these issues. That was also the year of World War I, right? So, I mean, a lot of big old things happened a lot of things, and all interrelated. I've got one book here, actually this one. It's called the State of New York at the Panama Pacific International Exposition in San Francisco in 1915. So 1 year after the canal opened, they had this huge exposition in San Francisco. 20 million people, apparently like 19 million showed up, they estimated, rounded it off maybe. They said like 1 million people lived in San Francisco, 19 more showed up to this exposition, exposition right here. And this exposition, this book is incredible. It talks about how basically it's almost like a CIA fact book from 1915. Not CIA didn't exist yet, but for those who have looked through the CIA fact book, you know how it's arranged. This is kind of similar. It's talking about how you can use the Panama Canal to start business, say, between Uruguay and Japan, right? Because now that we've got this canal here, all sorts of businesses can be formed that were impossible before. They were impractical anyway. Right? And likewise, when you open a new railway, the same things happen, right? And so, when you open a new railway, suddenly, hey, there's opportunities for business that just did not exist because, hey, the copper's over there and the iron is over there and blah, blah, blah is over here. And here's where the cheap labor is. We can pull it all together and we can make something, right? And likewise, that's what this whole book is about from 1915. It's quite interesting. So anyway, I've been studying this canal for a long time. I've been studying not just this canal, but how this fits into the global scheme of things and how these weapons of mass migration, you think this is one of the most effective, cheapest weapons in the world, demographic weapons. And this weapon of mass migration is far from over. And this, by the way, was written by, sorry, this microphone stand. I have problems with it. It must be made in China. Definitely not made in Japan. And the bottom line is, last night, President Trump, well, this is like the 10th bottom line. There's a lot of them. President Trump talked about taking the canal back, right? And he mentioned that a big American company just bought, the Chinese ports on either side, operated by Hutchison Whampoa. Well, actually, that big company's name he didn't mention was BlackRock, BlackRock. They're one of the only asset managers that is allowed to operate in China, right? They're a massive company, one of the biggest companies in the world. Buddies, think with Trump, and it looks to me like you're taking the canal from one hand and putting it into this hand. I'm not sure about that. We're studying it right now, and in fact, I just had somebody send me 2 studies on it. An investigator who's looking into it, and I'm going to read them as soon as we get offline. But the bottom line is, again, the 12th bottom line is there's a lot of acting going on. The canal, I've said it so many times, we need to get China out of this entire hemisphere as much as we can. But they're flooding over the Darien Gap, and they're all over the United States. They're working in law enforcement. They're working at the FBI and the CIA. They are in the U.S. military. They are in the Navy. They are in the Army. They are in the FBI. They are in the NSA and the CIA. They are in the DIA. They are in the White House. They are in the White House, right? They're everywhere because we have allowed them to invade us, right? And so there is a lot to do, and I'm not seeing it happen, actually, as much as people would like to be on the euphoria train. And let me tell you something. A lot of people say, why do you hate Trump? Or why did you not like this guy or that guy? It comes down to this. I'm an American. Look at me as a referee who wants the people in the stands to win, right? I want the United States to win. I want peace and prosperity to win. I'm not on the Trump team. I'm definitely not on the Democrat team. I'm definitely not on the China team. 100%. China needs to get out of here. But these people are so commingled, and I don't see this handing it over to BlackRock for the supposed $23 billion. I'm not sure what all this means, actually. I'm unclear about this. Now, taking back the Panama Canal, it's clear that Panama is in violation of the treaty. I've been saying this for a long time. It's crystal clear that they're in violation of the treaty. There's no need to lie about it. There's no need to fabricate things, right? For instance, Trump said again on the speech last night that 38,000 people died building the Panama Canal. That is utter bullshit. He keeps saying it over and over and over and over and over, and it is a lie every single time. Why do you have to lie about it? 38,000 Americans did not die making the canal. In fact, 38,000 people did not die making the canal. And that would include the French. If you include the French, which it's not their canal, we built a completely separate canal. If you combine the French and foreign other deaths making the canal when we built it, I don't know what the number is, but it's going to be somewhere in the 20s at maximum. And it's going to be about 400 or 500 Americans, right? So why does he keep lying about these things? These things make me unable to trust him on anything else, right? I mean, I come at this from a war perspective. If a soldier beside me lies about something, utterly lies about it, I can't trust anything else he says, right? And this is important. This is important stuff. So if I can't trust him on the little stuff that doesn't even matter, how can I trust him on the big stuff? I can't unless I'm a fool in a cult, right? It's just not going to happen, right? So I don't trust him based on what I'm seeing with my eyes. And with my eyes, the United Nations is still running right down the street from me, full force, right? Great. Defund the USA. Great. Nice. I like it. Put troops on the southern border. What good does it do if you are not going to dismantle the United Nations? It's all a show, like building the wall. It's all a show, right? I've been across the entire U.S. southern border, all of it. It took months. I mean, on the Mexican side and the U.S. side, not the whole Mexican side, but I've been across the whole U.S. side and a bunch of the Mexican side. I've been in every country looking at this, from Colombia to North Canada, right? Across Europe, Japan, Thailand, 30 countries just in the last 3 years, right? I understand what's going on with these flows. I understand what's going on more than almost anybody you're going to meet on planet Earth, unless they're one of the people doing it, right? Those people probably know a lot more about what's going on because they're the ones in enemy headquarters, and I'm not. I'm just watching I might know more about how their scorecard's going because I'm watching how they actually implement it. I mean, the generals are in some kind of headquarters somewhere, planning all this stuff and executing it. But I'm actually out on the battlefields watching how the execution's playing out. And I don't know what their plans were, but the bottom line is it's working and it's not over. Europe is still being invaded. And of course, we've got now Europe and the United States going to blows with each other. And Canada and the United States, Mexico and the United States, Panama and the United States. I've watched for years as actors just destroy our soft power around the world. For instance, I was in Thailand during 2 of the coups in 2010 and 2014. When I say I was in Thailand during the coups, I don't mean I was in Thailand up in Chiang Mai while the coups were happening in Bangkok. I was in Bangkok with the firefights, right? I mean, bullets flying everywhere. I was with the army. I was out with the red shirts and the yellow shirts and PDRC and all that stuff, right? Months. I mean, I was sleeping on the ground with them months at a time. I was out there with them, not sleeping on the ground for months at a time, but occasionally sleeping on the ground, usually sleeping in hotels where RPG hit one hotel room 3 floors above it, and a grenade hit another hotel room just after I had left, and it actually blasted through the ceiling. I mean, this is how close I was to the coups, right? I understand what's going on, and I watched that. Well, I'm not really never really figured out who was exactly doing what over there. There was over 80 groups involved that we could list. But the U.S. State Department, the U.S. Embassy in Thailand at that time, the ambassador was a lady named Christy Kinney. She had been the ambassador over in Philippines and Ecuador, where she left a trail of destruction. But when she was in Thailand, she spent her whole time obviously intentionally trying to destroy U.S. relations with Thailand. We've had relations with Thailand longer than any country on earth. Now, Morocco was the first country that recognized the United States. I always thank Moroccans for that. And they can't believe any American even realizes that Morocco was the first to recognize the United States. But that was right after, that was 1778. Did they recognize us? Somewhere along that line, 1777, 78, something like that. And sorry, my memory's foggy, but we've had good relations with Thailand since, good Lord, 1850s or 60s. It's a long time. And in fact, one of the kings actually offered to send war elephants to President Lincoln to help with the Civil War. I mean, and Lincoln must have been put into a position about how do you very politely and anthropologically correctly, culturally correctly say, sorry, we can't use the elephants and don't know what to do with them. But but I watched Christy Kinney just methodically, the ambassador to Thailand, methodically dismantle our relations with Thailand. I used to fight with her every day. It was all over the news in Thailand. If you look up my name and Christy Kinney, you'll see she left her ambassadorship early. No coincidence. I was stressing her out. There were people in the embassy that were like, these things that you're publishing, it's stressing her out. It's causing stress in the embassy. Every day I would publish things, or almost every day. And I was told by people in the embassy, they would print out whatever I published and they would put it next to the coffee machines and the water cooler and all that. The embassy in Thailand, the U.S. embassy, is huge. It's the biggest, or at that time up until some point, maybe the embassy in China is bigger now. I don't know, but it used to be the biggest embassy in Asia. I don't know if that's still true or not, but the bottom line is it's a huge embassy. Bottom line again, it's a huge embassy. And there was a big fight within the embassy for those who are actually Americans who wanted to keep our relationship strong with Thailand, and those who are trying to dismantle it, right? And the same happened in Japan with other ambassadors like Rahm Emanuel and Kennedy, right?
Real quickly. So you're saying that this is somebody that is working on behalf of China, perhaps trying to dismantle our relationship at the behest of China, or is that what's going on?
I don't know who they're doing it on behalf of, but they're clearly doing it. For instance, the embassy here in Panama, I just messaged to people close to, as much as I attack Trump all the time, people close on his team communicate with me every single day, 7 days a week at this point. It's more now than ever. And they know because the information that I provide is 24 karat gold. It's vetted, it's legit, it's accurate, right? You wouldn't believe some of the things that go back and forth. And I just said yesterday and today, right after that speech, I was messaging to some of the Trump team, you need to fire everybody in the U.S. Embassy. Despite that I'm in opposition to Trump, the man, I am hardcore American, born and raised and die American, right? I'm for America. So people that are on Trump's team that are for America, I help them a lot. And I said very clearly to numerous, you need to fire everybody in the U.S. Embassy in Panama, all of them. I mean, the maids, you need to fire the janitors, everybody, close it down or bring in a completely new crew. You got to get rid of everybody. This crew is working against the United States. It's working against Panama, and it's working against Trump. It's working for somebody that's not us. And I don't know who that somebody is, but it's not us. And they need to be all fired. I'm sure you're going to be firing some patriots in there. Have a nice day. Sorry about that. This is war, right? Go get another job somewhere else where you can do patriotic work, because it does not have to be with an enemy formation. And the U.S. Embassy in Panama should be closed immediately. And I don't mean there needs to be a plan for it. Lock the door and send them home. Put the Marines down there to guard it.
Wow. So, I mean, in terms of this idea that, taking over the Panama Canal and all that stuff, I mean, what do you think about what do you think about that kind of a concept? Is there any good in that? Does it help with a lot of these issues?
Well, if you look at my Sean Ryan interview about a year ago and many other interviews that I've said before that, somebody will take the Panama Canal. And I'm not talking about, it doesn't matter if Trump's president or whoever's president. It doesn't matter if Xi Jinping's in power. Let's talk about human behavior. I study a lot, and I'm either on the ground in jungles and deserts and wars and that sort of thing, or I'm in these books, or I'm out with key people and all over the world. So I have some frame of reference to say this. Panama is a juicy lamb, defenseless, and it's wearing a garland of pork chops. This place is one of the most valuable places on earth. Where I'm sitting right now, this place is unimaginably valuable, right? Especially to the United States, which means especially to China as well, right? This is absolutely one of the, you can't make it any more valuable than it is, right? I mean, the gold here, the rivers run with gold down in Darien. I mean, there's energy here. There's billions of dollars in other resources like copper. The copper mine that's closed right now, run by First Quantum with huge Chinese ownership, is closed right now, but that can bring in more money than the actual canal, right? I mean, this place is rich, not just because of where it's at, but because of what it's got. And it's defenseless, right? There's no serious military here at all. I mean, they might have some machine guns. I think there was just a purchase order put in for some. They don't have surface-to-air missiles. They don't have a Navy. They don't have an Air Force. They don't have artillery. They don't even have mortars, right? They don't even have grenade launchers, right? They can't defend this place. And so this is a big old juicy lamb wearing a garland of pork chops, surrounded by hungry predators who are also predacious against each other. Like China and the United States, of course, are at best competitors, right? Actually, I think what's going on here, which is actually pretty clear for the 1% of 1% who really study this stuff, is that a huge fight is unfolding between China and Zionists, right? Because I just spent 2 months in Argentina looking at similar. It's also happening in Argentina. It's happening in other places. But it takes a lot of study to track with what I just said. Otherwise, it sounds like you're just throwing words in the sky and hoping they'll land in somebody's ears. But I could lay out this architecture with a big map and all kinds of other information. It would take many, many hours, perhaps days. But in summary, let's get there again to that bottom line. I see a big fight between Zionist and Chinese Communist Party. This is an oligarchical fight. These are not nation-state fights. The nation-states like Israel, United States, Germany, they're captured. They're captured. The people running these countries are basically condoms. Like Trudeau doesn't run Canada or didn't run Canada. He's just a condom for the globalists. Same with Biden, just a condom. Same with Trump. Trump is not the master. If you look closely, you can see the strings coming through his suit, right? Trump is another puppet. I know a lot of people love Trump and they can't believe that about Daddy Trump. He would not be there if he were not a puppet. He is a puppet, right?
Puppet of whom, though?
That's a good question. It's clear, if you study history enough, you'll see that fascism is a natural formation, right? Fascism, in broad strokes, is when industry combines with government, right? Which is basically everywhere on earth. So basically every government on earth is fascist and always has been since day one. Now, as time goes on, they become more and more and more fascist, right? What is a fascist, by the way? Fascist? A fascicle is like a binding, like a bunch of twigs that you bind together and make a broom, right? That's a fascicle. A fascicle, these little things that bind, the bindings in the book, those are fascicles. The reason these fascicles look so far apart is these are maps that fold out, so they're huge maps. They actually fold out like 4 or 5 feet. It's unbelievable. Anyway, but these are called fascicles. So the fascicle is when they combine, right? So industry and government are just going to combine. They're not going to be separate. That's just not how this is ever going to work. I mean, when the top people in industry, I mean, their children go to the same schools as the director of CIA, as the NSA, and the top military people. And some go into the military, and some people from the military go work. All their families are intermarried. It's not just the United States. It's just the way the world works. The jungle is the jungle, right? Who runs the jungle? When I brought Brett Weinstein down here, everybody asked, who runs this thing? I'm like, I don't really know. I mean, you're an evolutionary biologist, Brett. I mean, Weinstein. I mean, who runs the jungle? I mean, you got your PhD work done in Panama jungles. Who runs this jungle? I mean, you're like Dr. Jungle. Who runs the jungle? I don't know. I'm in the jungles all the time, all over the world. Deserts. Who runs the desert? I don't know. God, right? So, I mean, these oligarchical structures are very complex. They're complex systems within complex systems. There's so much... nobody knows who runs them. Nobody. What we can see that there are some major oligarchical structures, like the Chinese Communist Party, which has structures within that. There's parts of the Chinese Communist Party, they fight each other. There's the Shanghai guys that want to, there's all kinds of fights between the Chinese that are not even in the CCP, such as those in Hong Kong or those in Taiwan or these Chinese police stations that you see in places like Dublin and London. And we went to one in London. We went to one in Dublin. We went to the one in Vancouver recently. Masako Ganaha and I went to those three. And those police stations are there to stop overseas Chinese from gathering up enough force to overthrow the Chinese government, right? Because these things have happened before. Often a war starts on the other side of the world with your diaspora, right? The diaspora that's over there, who becomes rich and powerful and influential in these other governments, then harnesses the energy of other governments and other means and methods, and they overthrow your government. This is a common way that the United States has used for years. That's one of the ways that we overthrew the Soviet Union, for instance, using the Polish diaspora in the United States, like in Chicago, the CIA operation called QR Helpful, has nothing to do with Q to my knowledge, but the CIA operation to overthrow the Soviets in Poland was called QR Helpful. And a big part of QR Helpful was using Polish in the United States, because the second biggest Polish city is Chicago. And that's actually true. Polish used to tell me that. I lived in Poland for 2 years. They used to tell me that all the time. What's the second biggest Polish city? And I'd be like, I don't know, maybe Gdansk. They're like, no, Warsaw. I know, not Warsaw, Chicago. But we used the overseas Polish, and they used us, and we worked together as a great team. And that was part of how we overthrew the entire Soviet Union. It wasn't the only part, but QR Helpful in Poland was key, right, to overthrowing the entire Soviet Union. There was also the war in Afghanistan, and brilliant Pebbles and Star Wars and all these other things. There was many different things that happened that came together, and finally, with the application and a good president, Reagan, we were able to finally dismantle the Soviet Union. And then I ended up running around a lot of those countries for years and living in Poland for a couple of years. Learned a lot. But the bottom line, again, there's so many of these, is that the Panama Canal, somebody's going to take it. Just like Hawaii. Hawaii is a strategic location. It was out there all alone until apparently a bunch of Tahitians came. I don't know when, 1,200 years ago or something. I don't know. Who knows? And then they got wiped out by other people who came, who are now the indigenous. The indigenous of Hawaii now actually genocided the indigenous who were there before, right? So Hawaii is a prime piece of real estate. And as the world grows and ships get stronger and weapons get stronger and airplanes and all these sorts of things, Hawaii became a nice, juicy pork chop in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And whoever owned that pork chop will have great influence over the Pacific Ocean and influence over their partner who is on the other side of that ocean. So everybody was wondering, who's going to take Hawaii? Will it be the British? Will it be the Russians? Will it be the French? Will it be the Japanese, Chinese? Who's going to take it? We took it. Smart thing to do. Somebody was going to take it. People can cry all they want. Brother can cry about what happened. Totally get it. This is the way the world works, and it's working like that for America too. We're being invaded too, right? We're being invaded. Weapons of mass migration right there, right? Same thing happened to Hawaii is now happening to us. So this thing has happened all over the world, right? And people do this intentionally to destroy countries and then take them over. But the bottom line is, again, we took Hawaii because it's like Panama. It was a juicy pork chop. It was defenseless, relatively speaking. Somebody was going to take it. And if you let your enemy take it, if you let United Kingdom take it, if you let Russia take it, they will then have huge influence over the sea in that area instead of us. They will have the place to refuel their ships and make there's a beautiful Pearl Harbor there. They'll have a place to do Pearl Harbor. It'll be Ruski Pearl Harbor or something, right? So that's why we took it. That's why somebody's going to take Panama. And I'm not saying that because of Trump or CCP, this is just how humans work. And so somebody's going to take it. That's just how humans work.
Wild, man, wild. So you're saying there's two opposing forces that are basically fighting?
Many opposing forces. Many, not two. But I don't know how many opposing forces there are. Some are overlap. Sorry to interrupt, but I want to make clear. There are many. Some are in opposition. Some are frenemies. I think most will be frenemies. They'll cooperate on one thing and not on another. And some are in direct opposition. Some are, so it's many. It's who runs the jungle? I don't know. I mean, the Russians have a massive embassy down the road from me here. There's the Chinese, the Russians, the Zionists are clearly making a huge settlement in Panama.
Who are the Zionists, by the way? When you say Zionist, I'm thinking, isn't Trump a Zionist? I'm trying to understand what are the distinguishing groups here.
Oh, yeah, Trump's a Zionist. But what is a Zionist? That's a whole nother subject for which you need an expert on Zionism. Like, what's a Catholic? You can ask the same question about what's a Catholic, and you'll end up with Catholics fighting about it, lickety split. Same thing with Zionist. What's a Zionist? Zionist is not a Jew. Some Jews are Zionists. Many Zionists watching this are Christians, right? That's how I was actually raised, right? To be totally on Israel's side and Christian. That's how I was raised, 100%, right? And there are even Muslim Zionists. When I say that, people are like, you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, but I do. Yes, look at the Kurds. I spent a lot of time with the Kurds. Many of the Kurds are straight up Zionists. I spent a lot of time with Kurds. And they're Muslims. And they love Israel and da-da-da-da-da. Actually, a lot of the Kurds look at themselves as a lost tribe of Israel. Look it up. Same with the Pashtuns, who most of the Taliban are Pashtun, hardcore Muslims. A lot of them they see themselves as a lost tribe of Israel. Straight up. And you know who I first learned that from was actually a Jewish scholar. He was talking about this, how the Pashtun are, they see them and they probably are a lost tribe of Israel. And they became Muslim, right? And they are now. And so I spent a lot of time. I spent 2 years out in Afghanistan. And a lot of that time was with Pashtun people and Baluch people, Hazar people, Tajik people, Uzbek people. I was out with so many different people. But a lot of that time was with Pashtun people. And the Pashtun, when you ask them, are you a lost tribe of Israel? Actually, some of them say, oh, no, that's just nonsense. They say this for some reason. And then others will say, of course we are. Yes, definitely. So it's not just a monolithic thought that goes through the Pashtun people. If you know some Pashtun people, you can ask them and get their response and ask them what their friends think, because they're usually very open to talk about it, and they like to talk about it, actually. So so who are the Zionists? Well, they're not Jews, but the Zionists would like to make you think that everybody who doesn't like Zionists are anti-Semitic. But what's Semitic? Semitic's not Jew. Semitic's not Jew. There's a lot of Jews who are not Semitic. What's Semitic? Anti-Semitic is the people who are bombing Gaza, the Semitics who live in Gaza, right? Who are Muslims, right? So this is all information war. So you've got these information warriors who are trying to conflate themselves with, you can't beat up on the Jews, and anybody that we want to protect, like the Zionists, we'll just make sure that and make the Jews think that. Listen, I picked up I don't have it. Masako just took it back to Japan. I bought a bond from 1899. Theodore Herzl is the first one on that bond. I bought it downtown here in Panama City. It's a bond to take the land from Palestine. Yeah, I mean, it's straight up. It cost $180. I'm going to frame the thing. And it's an actual authentic bond. You can get these things. They're usually a lot more expensive than that. It looks authentic. I mean, it's hold it up to the light type stuff. And actually, you can buy stocks and bonds for the old Panama Canal here too, the French and everything. But the bottom line is this was planned a long time ago. The Zionism, Theodore Herzl, right? And the Zionists fight each other. So just like there's not one monolithic Catholic church or Baptist church, religions constantly are splitting, constantly bifurcating, and constantly recombining. They're like dendrites almost. They're almost like, I don't know how rivers go. Like you got all these feeders that come and make the Mississippi River. Then you got the main course, and then it feeds out into a river delta down there. I see belief systems like this around the world in all these countries that I go and study, where these constant synergistic and synchronistic religions and belief systems, everything you touch touches you. When I touch that book, it touches me, right? Yeah. And same with information. For instance, when Christianity touches Judaism, they combine, right? Well, they come from the same origin anyway. But the bottom line is Zionism. What is it? Actually, a lot of the Zionists, like for instance, I took Brett Weinstein to the Darien Gap. He's Zionist, but he's atheist. I took Laura Loomer to the Darien Gap. She's Zionist and she's hardcore Jewish. So those two, I don't think get along too well together. You know what I mean? Because Zionist atheists and Zionist Jews, the ones that I deal with, which is a lot, they don't seem to get along with each other. I didn't actually take Laura and Brett on the same trip, but I just get the feeling that they don't like each other, and because of whatever their beliefs are different, right? Again, talk with Catholic. I wish I had like 20 Zionists around the table. First, you'd have to make them go through the metal detector. Same with Catholics, right? Because if you get them to start arguing about what's going on, it's going to be a vibrant argument. You know what I mean? So for me to sit here and tell you what Zionism is, I'd like to get 10 Zionist scholars here and just roll the camera and hear what they say. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be a difficult, again, what's a jungle? I know what the jungle is when I see it, but what is it really? Is it the rain? Is it the trees? You know what I mean? And Zionism, but when I say the overarching formation, let's say of the Catholic Church or Zionism, or some other large organization like State Department, let's say Zionism, there is a large energy center of gravity, right? And that center of gravity seems to have, I think they're predatory towards Israel. Actually, I know that may sound controversial. I'm just basing that on things that I see and sense. I can't actually deductively reduce that to a math problem and say, well, blah, 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 blah. But to me, it appears that Zionists are actually as predatory towards Israel as anybody else. Like, look at,
Like, one of the theories, if you don't mind me mentioning this, is that actually some of these Christian Zionists are very much, I guess, anti-Semitic or anti-Jew, that they actually want the destruction of Israel so biblical realities could come. So they're supporting Israel, so 2/3 of Israel could be wiped out and biblical prophecy could come true. I mean, you think there's anything to that?
oh, yeah. If you want to, one thing I learned actually when I was a Green Beret, weirdly, was to start studying world religions. And at first I was like, why would I'm a Green Beret. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? When am I supposed to study this stuff? And I'm supposed to study combat, which we did quite a lot. But in the Green Beret part of that world, it can be, if you want to operate at some high level later on as you progress, you do need to study these things. And one of the things that I learned is you need to know how the story ends, and you in some frame of thinking. If the story ends apocalyptically, as it does with some of the German mythology, Germans seem to occasionally just want to destroy Germany. Like they want to be standing in ruins. It's like part of the firmware. It's like part of the cultural firmware. That firmware is deep down. We look at religion. A lot of people look at religion and they say, well, if you want to study the Pashtun or whatever, you need to study Islam and you need to study, but I've traveled around this world with so many cultures, and I don't think that's true. I think you have to study, first of all, there's different layers of these firmwares. Let's just call it that. There's the human operating system, the one that, when you're a baby, we're all afraid of loud noises, apparently. There's, things that are just part of our actual human nature, true human nature. And then you immediately start being inculcated into a cultural firmware, right? So if you're Japanese, that'll be Japanese. If you're Pashtun, it'll be Pashtun, right? And these firmwares are very textured, like sand. Sand around the world is different. Sand 100 meters away is like a fingerprint. I mean, it's the same with these human terrain. Human terrain is the firmwares are very, very textured. There are general flows and that sort of thing, like how Japanese are. But if you go around Japan, you'll see Japan actually has a lot of texture to, like in some parts of Japan, when people go up an escalator, they all stand on the right. In other parts of Japan, they all stand on the left. You know what I mean? It's like, there's these little things and big things. You might think Japanese is, but Japanese is just like the overarching firmware. And within that, there's all these little things. So now, when it comes to studying how people, and how did I predict that Panama would be so important, right? It's looking at these more basic levels of how humans operate and just going through history constantly, right? Because it does rhyme pretty hard. And but if you look at the human basic firmware that we all operate by, to reproduce and those sorts of things, and then there is the cultural firmware, and then on top of that, in my experience, is whatever comes next, like religion, right? And then these all blend together, like Pashtun. When Islam blends with Pashtun culture or subsets of Pashtun culture and subsets of Islam, you're going to get a different behavior, a different firmware, because they mix together. So your cultural firmware, let's say your basic human firmware, your cultural firmware. This is things that I've never read this in a book. I just go for long walks in the Himalaya and think about it. So you got your human firmware, cultural, and then religion or cults or whatever, political parties, the latest fashion. The latest fashion is like ripples on the water. They come and go, right? But these all combine together, right? Like this is not separate from this. This is not these blend and make a third thing, right? And then you've got, of course, the fashions of the day that are just ripples across the water. And so when you look at studying how people operate, I more look at this, the bottom one, and cultural. Because if I want to know how Mexicans may behave in some search, it doesn't do me as much good to study Catholicism. A lot of Catholics in Mexico or Argentina, a lot of Catholics, a lot of, almost all of Poland is Catholic. Italy, a lot is Catholic, right? Ireland, a lot of it's Catholic, right? Republic of Ireland. And so the bottom line is, again, would I study Catholicism to try to predict how Polish is going to operate, or would I study these two? I'd study these two. I'd study human behavior and cultural firmware more, and then study on this, which is helpful, but tell me when the holidays are and stuff. But really, most of the activity seems to be down here in these two, cultural and human firmware. So that's why I can tell you, this Panama Canal, somebody's going to take it, because I'm looking at this one. I'm looking at the predators are going to take it from the weak.
But you're saying, so Panama Canal, I guess us taking it is good, because if we don't take it, somebody else will, like Hawaii, right? But you're saying that unless the UN and pretty much any Chinese nationals are removed completely, like this is we're basically, what you're saying is we're heading slow motion into disaster now, where before we're in a speeding Ferrari, nonetheless, we're heading into disaster.
I'm not saying any Chinese. That, again, there's too much texture, and I know this subject deeply enough to be very cautious with my words coming from this, because a lot of the Chinese that are here have been here for like 150 years, 170 years. They speak Spanish fluently. Their grandparents were born here, right? They're Panamanian Chinese, Pan-Chines or something, right? And I see them all the time. And I've taken some to the Darien Gap to help me down there, because actually a lot of them still speak Mandarin or Cantonese or Fujian, right? They speak these. Actually, Chinese isn't even a language; it's a group of languages, right? So, but the that are called Chinese. So, but the Chinese who are here, many are like a lot of the Chinese in America. They've been there 150 years, man. They're American like I am. You know what I mean? So they can't get rid of them. I mean, they're straight up Americans. But these Chinese who just came across the Darien Gap and suddenly have a driver's license in New York 10 days later and that sort of thing, they need to go. I mean, huge numbers, right? The ones who can't speak English very well but have TS clearance working in the communications department in the U.S. Embassy in Panama, they need to go, right? They need to be gone. In lock, stock, and barrel, a lot of these student visas, go. They're going into our universities, into the physics department and the engineering. And I hope, she's doing the dishes. I hope that's not too loud. Can you hear it?
I can hear it, but you're still clear.
Do it later. I'm living. Sometimes you're hearing me with birds because I'm in the jungle or whatever. I've actually done interviews, numerous interviews at different times when firefights broke out, like in Afghanistan and Iraq. And people were like, "Is that sound effects?" I'm like, "No, that's a real, no kidding firefight." I'd be on these little bases, and there were so many firefights. But but now it's dishes, and so that this is much better, huh? Mm-hmm. And so I like to get places with a kitchen so I don't have to waste all my money eating out. So if you want to predict what's going on, and why have I been so accurate predicting so many things over the years? It's because I spend a little bit of time on the religion for actually a lot over the years, a lot on that, actually a huge amount. But these are the ones I watch very closely. And then watch this one, because you need to know how the story ends. How do they think the story ends, right? Because they're going to work towards how those final few pages go, right? So like if the framework is one of, this place has to be in destruction for my mythology to be fulfilled, then you're going to work towards destruction. You're going to work towards it for sure. And because that's just the way, that's just that firmware, how you wake up in the morning, and all these little collective moves of millions of people, they add up and they create these conditions, and then boom, it happens.
Wow, man. Wow. I mean, you've certainly been correct at predicting a lot of things, especially with the Darien Gap, these places, ports. I mean, I remember you were talking about Holland being one of them, obviously Panama, Darien Gap. I mean, what would be the message to the viewers out there that you'd want to really convey to the Trump administration in order to really fix this mess and make sure that we don't head into disaster?
Well, since before the inauguration and since a long time, I've been saying you're not serious until you dismantle the United Nations. If you don't dismantle the United Nations, you're just not serious. You're just a joker. You're basically like fighting Mike Tyson, and you're just slapping his hands. I'm slapping Mike Tyson's hands while he punches me in the face. That's what we're doing on the border. We're slapping Mike Tyson's hands. And so we got the army down there slapping Mike Tyson's hands, right? Mike Tyson's standing up there going, If you don't go for his ribs, if you don't go for his head, if you don't go for his legs, if you don't go for his body, he's going to beat your ass, right? And that's what's happening now. We have to go after the architecture. We have to go after what makes those hands work. You ain't going to beat a fighter. You're not going to beat a boxer by slapping his hands all day. And that's all we're doing. We're doing some deportations. They look cool on TV. It's not very many. I'm here, man. I'm watching it, right? It's very, very few. And so we got the army down with their strikers down on the southern border now. Big deal, right? I spent about 2 years in combat and strikers. Great vehicle, wonderful combat vehicle. And guess what? We didn't ultimately win Iraq or Afghanistan, did we? Right? Because we were slapping hands. We're slapping hands. We never went for the body. Why were we even there to start with? But beyond that, right? People say we were there because of 9/11. Okay, a lot of people are a little suspicious of 9/11 after all the other things that have happened these days. But not to go down that rabbit hole. But the bottom line is, what we're doing right now is slapping the enemy's hands. And the enemy, if the enemy is Mike Tyson, he's just grinning at us through his grill right now, getting ready to knock us out. Because when Trump is gone and this architecture is still in place, they're going to destroy us. They already know how their story ends. They know. Their story ends with demographic destruction of Europe, with demographic destruction of Canada, United States, Australia, Japan. Yeah, and people say Japan would never do that, to which I would say bullshit. They are actually physically doing it. I'm there a lot. They are doing it. Go to Kawaguchi in Japan. Go to Kawaguchi in Japan. It's mostly Kurdish now, right? And they're expanding now because the Kurds keep coming. And who are the Kurds? Kurds see themselves as a lost tribe of Israel. I tell the Japanese, you're going to get huge Israeli and Zionist influence through the Kurds, and you're not even going to know it. They are that type. They're tribal. I mean, tribes stick with tribes. Bottom line. And by the way, when I was in Iraq, I started asking people, because a lot of the Sunni tribe and a lot of the Shia tribe are, okay, let's talk about Al-Jabari tribe. The Sunni and Shia are not tribes. Those are sects of Islam, right? Those are main formations of Islam, Sunni and Shia, right? But the tribes, such as the Al-Jabari tribe, the biggest tribe in Iraq is Al-Jabari. And Al-Jabari, many of the Al-Jabari are Sunni, and many of the Shia and many of the Al-Jabari are Sunni, and many are Shia, right? So, and Sunni and Shia were fighting each other like crazy on the book level. They're fighting each other because of, Sunni versus Shia, right? But when you look down deeper, many of the Al-Jabari tribe, the biggest, and other tribes, were many within that Al-Jabari tribe were Sunni and many were Shia. And I would ask Al-Jabari all the time, I ask so many, what comes first, tribe or sect, Sunni or Shia, or Al-Jabari versus Al-Takriti or whatever, right? And they're like, they would always say, tribe comes first. Tribe comes first. And so if it's like a policeman who's from the Al-Jabari tribe and he's Shia and a Sunni from his same tribe comes through his checkpoint, he's going to wave him through. They'd tell me that. If I come across somebody from my tribe, of course, I don't care if I would rather he be Shia or whatever, but he's my tribe. So, okay, we're brothers. It's like that. That's at the tribal level, right? That's the deeper level, right? And so anyway, I can ramble on for hours, sir.
I'm curious because this is just an off-the-wall question. When you mentioned the Kurds, the Kurds were very involved in the Armenian genocide. They say the Armenians are one of the 12 tribes of Israel, the lost tribes, whatever. I'm just curious, what's your point of view on that topic?
I don't know. I went to Armenia. I loved it. I mean, you're of Armenian descent, right? Or you're Armenian, right? And I would love to be in Armenia right now, actually.
Yeah.
And interestingly, the Zionists are selling weapons to the Azeris who use those against Armenia, right? Why? Why are they selling weapons that are being used to genocide the Armenians? Why? Do you know? I mean, I went over to Armenia. I just messaged somebody from Armenia, in Armenia this morning. But what's going on there? I mean, why are the Zionists selling weapons that are being used to kill Christians? And then the Christians just completely carte blanche support Israel. Like Israel, when I say Zionist, let's say Israel. Israel and Zionist, I mean, this gets complex. You can get into a big argument when you say Israel or Zionist or Jews or right? Christian Zionist. You'll get into a real quick argument because there is so much texture here, and depending on what somebody either understands about it, because my knowledge is going to be limited too. Everybody's knowledge on this is going to be limited. Even the deepest academic, like Theodore Herzl, the bond that I bought that they were selling to create, to take Palestine, that bond is from 1899. So this didn't start like when Israel was formed, or what is called Israel, which is not biblical Israel, but not to go into that. But Armenia, back to that. Why is Israel selling weapons that are being used to kill Christians and then demanding Christians support Israel or be called anti-Semitic, which Semitic is not even Judaism, and neither is Zionism. Neither is Israel. Israel is Zionist. So I don't know. It gets who runs the jungle? What is the jungle? And this is a jungle, but there is the overall formation that running a big part of the show is clearly Zionist with much complexity.
So interesting, man. Really interesting. It's the thing that I think's going on actually is a religious battle, really, at the end of the day, because it's interesting how Christians keep getting targeted in that region, especially over the last 100-something years. Most of the Christians have been liquidated. If you look at the history of the Ottoman Empire, and Turkey and Azerbaijan are essentially the same country, and they have dreams of reforming the Ottoman Empire, and what stands in the way is this little landlocked nation called Armenia. So that's probably part of it.
Yeah, I mean, Armenia, I would suggest everybody watching this jump on an airplane and go to vacation and go to Armenia. You are going to love it. And the people, you can walk around at midnight, safe. And by the way, when you're in Armenia, if you're there right now, you'll see those buses with China aid on the side of the buses. China is selling, or not selling, but they're giving ambulances and buses and other things to Armenia. And actually, Armenians say when you plug in your phone to charge it inside those nice buses, it downloads your data. I don't know. That's just what, some of the Armenians are saying, including a general.
Wow. Michael, man, this has been a fantastic episode. I really thank you for coming on to the Blood Money podcast again. And we should definitely do a catch-up soon, since you're down there seeing all this stuff unfold.
We should go to Armenia. Do you speak Armenian fluently?
I do, actually. I speak Western Armenian. Armenia is mostly Eastern, their Eastern dialect, which is a little bit more Russian influence, but yeah, I speak the Western dialect.
Oh, I could easily live over there for a year. You know,
Yeah.
Chuck Holton goes there all the time. He loves Armenia.
Oh, wow.
You know, Panamanians, they tend to like to live here more, I think. Panamanians, like the migrants going to the United States, it's not Panamanians. Americans move here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, and Panamanians are like, what? They're like Thais. Thais, yeah, they go and move different places and stuff, but they want to be in Thailand, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like when Thais go and travel around the world, they have to, their trip runs out when the Thai food they brought with them runs out, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I love Thailand. And Panamanians love to be in. Panama is a wonderful place. I mean, it's a place that you would want to visit, and even, but although with potential conflict coming, or certainly, you'd have to rethink whether or not you would want to invest too much at this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Michael, thank you so much for coming on to this Blood Money podcast. For the viewers out there, make sure you check out AmericaHappens.com for all of our featured episodes. Make sure you check out our Rumble channel, America Happens. And I will see you all on the next episode of Blood Money. Thank you.